Welcome to the Clean Power Hour Live. I'm Tim Montague, your co-host. Today on the Clean Power Hour, fossil fuel subsidies are way more than you think, $5.9 trillion more. Alaska shutting down dirty diesel generators with ground mount solar, nearly vertical solar. Mars solar rover shutting down due to 10% electricity generation versus originally. Yeah, the Mars solar, one of the Mars rovers, the older rover, is getting dusty. And industrial strength EV charging microgrids are coming to a truck and bus fleet operator near you. Welcome to the show, my co-host and commercial solar guy, John Weaver.
Hey, Timothy. I hope everything's going well for you.
So good to see you. You're coming to us from a new location.
Yes, and it's going to keep changing a little bit till I firm up my office space, but I've moved myself up toward Boston. I now live in Cambridge instead of on the South Coast near New Bedford. So I cruising up the coast a little.
You can hang out with those smart people from MIT.
That's absolutely part of my plan. Yeah, I just want to sit next to him and via osmosis maybe get a little smarter, I don't know. Just that's the goal. And there's, I've always had like a little fascination with MIT and Harvard because, I have academic tendencies, and it would just be kind of neat to sit in and take some classes and maybe learn and maybe even get somewhere business and life-wise by applying some of the, applying something that I might gain knowledge-wise hanging out around this area. So I'm looking forward to being a member of a very deep and broad energy industry that exists in Boston, and if being able to shake hands with people and eat some lunch with them might be beneficial. So,
yeah, excellent. I say bravo, well done, and I don't think you will regret living in Boston or Cambridge, which is just across some river from Boston, right?
Yeah, the Charles River. So I live about 1 mile from Boston, maybe a mile and a half, just straight shot, one road. And I would cross one bridge, and that bridge is the Charles River. And if you go down in a little bit, it's where the schools will row up and down this river. And that's where the competitions or showing off is. I don't know. It's a wonderful thing to walk up and down. I've jogged on the Charles River, both sides of it, Boston side and Cambridge side. And it's just cool. Nice, cool river downtown, splitting the city.
A lot of universities and a lot of energy companies, so good ecosystem. Yep. Well, let's get into the news. We have a lot of cool stories. I was listening to a new podcast, Comedians Conquering Climate Change, and shout out to Esteban Gast, who is a comedian who I happen to know. He lived here in Champaign for a while when he was a student, and now he's in LA, and he's co-hosting or hosting this new podcast. Check it out, Comedians Conquering Climate Change. But he pointed out on one of the recent episodes that the fossil fuel industry globally enjoys $5.9 trillion as of 2020 in subsidies. And when I mentioned this to you, you're like, oh yeah, well, that's no news. That's, it's a well-known thing. And it is well known that these subsidies for fossil fuels are very large, but I don't think it's a household number. And 5.9 trillion is a very large number. It is, several percent, 6.8% of GDP.
Global GDP.
Exactly. So, when we clean energy professionals are talking to less informed, whether they're prosumers or other kinds of professionals or customers, and they go, well, that stuff only works with subsidies, right? And the reality is that energy only works with subsidies. That is the nature of the energy industry, period. But for me, what's present is that this is a very big number. This is a huge amount of resources that is going into fossil fuels, and that number is actually growing, not shrinking. And these are just the subsidies part of the equation, right? The fossil industries writ large are a big part of the global economy. The upside of the transition is that, you see, for example, ExxonMobil, which used to be the largest company in the United States, is now in the toilet as far as their stock price. And, so tech has eclipsed fossil energy as some of the, fastest growing and most powerful companies. So I don't know if you have any reflections on this, John, and I have a PDF which I will link. This is a PDF from the IMF. I'm not going to bother putting it on screen, but I'll link it in the show notes. The IMF working paper. That is the International Monetary Fund.
So the one key detail on this number, and it has increased by a few tenths of a billion over the last, or a few tenths of a trillion, pardon me, over the last 3, 4, 5 years since this numbers started getting published annually. So I think it started off at 5.6 or 5.3 trillion, something like that. The subsidy word, you're going to get a lot of people who will bark back and try to actually mess with you on it and say, hey, technically it's not a subsidy. It's not a cash 5.9 trillion going to them. It's, it's like hundreds of billions maybe in subsidies. But some of that money includes challenging to value environmental damage. And I actually think they're underestimating the number. How do you value human society? Who cares what fiat currency says we're worth if we're dead? So,
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly.
So the massive amounts of the fact that you can dump pollution directly into the air and not pay for it in any reasonable amount that's a huge subsidy. It's not technically a subsidy. It's more of a lack of regulation or something, but that's huge. And that's what this whole game is. And we, society, are socializing that, the cost of it, in exchange for something, ease of life at this stage. And we're going to bear some hundreds of trillions, tens of trillions. I mean, the damage is going to be massive. And every year.
Yep. Yeah, there's a really nice body of literature now emerging about how the cost for society to step back from climate chaos is going to be so massive. On the order of $70 trillion is a number that I saw recently from one of the big accounting firms. I can't remember which one now. And what you can do with $10 trillion in the near term, right, to significantly put a dent in our carbon footprint and, reduce our carbon footprint and then go negative, right? We have to go net negative to the tune of 800 gigatons. And shout out to Robert Latimer. Thanks for joining us today from Omaha. But anyway, yeah, this business of energy and subsidies, it's a neglected awareness, I guess, is my take home.
I agree.
But I look forward to seeing if we can't get our buddy Esteban Gast on the show and bring some giggles to what is mostly a fairly dark story. But you, John, are bringing us a steady stream of good news about, for example, a new record for solar cell efficiency, and this is what keeps us getting up in the morning and not falling into despair, right? Because there is a lot of good news, and we are part of the solution, and you could be too if you're not already, right? If you're not in the clean energy transition, join us and become part of that. And it's not just about energy; it is about transportation and food systems, and construction, and so there's many aspects to the energy transition. So tell us about your story, though, and who's doing this record 39.5% quantum well technology.
NREL, National Renewable Energy Laboratory. I believe the team that's located in Golden, Colorado. And I've probably rubbed elbows with some of these folks in my one visit there when I hung out with the solar people. And it's a weird chip. It's not a weird chip. It's just one that's not for standard commercial use for folks like us. But it's just cool. It's a three junction chip with 3 layers of solar cell material that are complementary to each other. And then they like, if light is a curve like this, one of them grabs this chunk, one grabs the middle, one grabs the right, because each one of them are tuned differently. They call it doping in solar cell world. And then there's these new layers, not new layers, but these layers that are between these solar cells, up to 300 of them, that are called quantum wells. And what they do is grab the electrons that are excited by the sunlight. So the sunlight, the photons, the sunlight hits the solar cell. The light energy is absorbed by electrons. Electrons are released from their cells, from their atoms that they're connected to. And then these quantum wells help grab them faster, because most of them get reabsorbed in the system and they give off heat. So 80% of, if you're 20% efficiency, that means 80-ish% of the heat and energy and light is re-released back into the atmosphere, and 20% of that energy is grabbed. In this case, they doubled it. And so these quantum wells, which are just a cool tech, they represent our general advancements in material science, and it's just cool. And the coolest part is that maybe this type of technology could be utilized in multi-layer polysilicon plus, say, perovskite product that comes to us over time. Because perovskite plus silicon, which is my favorite fanboy technology, it's going to be the next magical product. And these guys at NREL are doing research that might influence that. I actually talked to a European group who's making perovskite plus silicon, and they said they're not using quantum well technology. They have other tools and techniques to bind layers, but it's just cool. It's like the stuff that's in the super fast F1 race cars that slowly filters down to you and I, Tim. And that's what I like about this. It's cool. It's new tech. It's base research. It's weird people in the laboratory with goggles and stuff. I like it.
Well, I found one of the strangest looking solar arrays that I've yet to see here in Anchorage, Alaska. And this was a story in an Anchorage newspaper. But it's a cool story because apparently in Anchorage and other parts of Alaska, they are using diesel generators to make electricity. And this is common in remote areas like islands like Hawaii and Puerto Rico. And, if you know anything about diesel engines, they emit not only a lot of CO2, but particulate pollution, which is not good for human health. And what do you see that's kind of funky about this solar array, though, John?
It's vertical. What is that, like 70 degrees?
Yeah, it's very high tilt, but it's also, they've put some of the array at different angles.
Yes, that too, of course.
And, some of it looks to be facing due east, perhaps. I mean, most of it's facing south. And, I thought about it a little bit, and I'm like, I'm just curious, like, why they didn't go for a double-axis tracker. Because they, obviously could achieve a similar thing with a
I've read that
double-axis
trackers,
tracker.
the further north you go, well, double-axis tracker is different, but the further north you go with single-axis trackers,
Right.
the less
Single won't
benefit.
work.
Yeah.
Single won't be a benefit, but double could be a way to go. But anyway, they've gamed the system, right? The sun is in a weird position, and you got to do high tilt. but they're able to really put a dent in their use of these diesel generators. And this is a 225 kW project at Shungnak in northwest Alaska, benefiting a tribal community. So that's all good. And yeah, I just think it's cool to see these edge cases for solar. By the way, I know that you had made a bid on a project in Alaska. Have you heard anything on that one?
We did not win the bid.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's a tough game, those RFPs.
Yep. We got messaged a week or two ago that they decided to move forward with somebody else. They'll keep our application on hand, of course. They didn't give us any feedback.
Yeah,
So, but it was cool doing it for the first time, being in on a big bid, going through the work.
yeah, good stuff.
Always, of course, disappointing.
So we talk about Mars.
Mars.
Uh,
Get
It
your
is-
ass to Mars.
it is, I'm excited that I think SpaceX is within a year or two, of landing on Mars. They will start with unmanned missions and then ultimately pursuing manned missions to Mars. But I saw in the news that SpaceX accomplished 22 launches and landings already in 2022, which is pretty incredible. The pace of launches is just really incredible. I need to put this Mars thing on screen though.
I do wonder. What's the plan for actually launching to Mars? Don't they have a window where they have to do it in a certain year to shorten the distance and everything?
Yeah, there is this elliptical orbit phenomenon, and so the Earth is closer to Mars, I think every 2 years, something like that. So the ideal launch window comes and goes, and it's not every month that you can make an easy launch to Mars. So that is definitely a factor, and I don't know what exactly that is, but you brought us a story. Insight Lander's final selfie on Mars shows why its mission is ending. And my retort was, well, why didn't they bring the helicopter to the rescue?
Yeah, I think they should have a robot specifically to go clean all the solar panels. It's got to be able to, take off, land, but then land far enough away from the rover so that it doesn't get more dirt on it by kicking it up. Or maybe it doesn't matter because it's going to clean it. Who knows? But it's kind of
Yeah,
sad.
I guess that's a hazard, right? If you fly the helicopter over the rover and it just creates this huge cloud of dust, then maybe it's going to be counterproductive.
Maybe. But like dust devils, like little twisters on Mars, often clean the solar panels. So it's a funny little thing that occurs with those units. But it's just another rover now that's going to be sadly hanging out on Mars and not doing anything. So poor little fellow. I hope we get a visitor to them sometime. At some point in the future, there will be missions, I would assume, to collect these things because it's going to be cool to put those in a museum. Maybe Musk will. Maybe SpaceX will decide to do some toy hunting on the surface of Mars and find these units. Who knows? And by the way, I just looked up the window thing. Starting in September of this year is a 12-month window of launch, and it didn't. I didn't look up when the next one was, but September 20th is the start. So we got a countdown.
September 20th is what?
Is the start of the 12-month window
Okay,
for optimal launch times.
gotcha. Of this year.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I don't know if we have any plans for a Mars launch this year, but
I'm gonna go.
it'll be a small miracle if we get the moon mission going.
Would you go on my Mars launch, Tim? I got a robot that I'm making, and
I would consider a moon trip, I think, but I don't know if I want to go to Mars.
Mars. It's a
That's
bit
an
far.
awful long trip.
It's true.
I know Musk is going to trick it out with great VR, and he promises a good party, but I think it's a one-way ticket.
And I think there's probably 10 million people who would take that one-way ticket as long as they know that their name's going to be splattered all over the world.
And that is why Musk says, we need to have more babies, because he wants to send 100 million people to Mars. We have to create a self-sustaining civilization so that when the ships stop coming, they can fend for themselves. And I think he's right. It's something like 100 million people we'll probably have to send. Not to mention the massive terraforming that would need to happen to really make it a halfway decent experience in the long run. But
Massive. We're gonna have to do like some robots or something to. We'll see. We'll see what happens. I mean, I hope at least we land a big rocket ship that brings something back for the first time. I don't know. It'd be kind of neat. EV chargers.
yeah, so fleet electrification is in the news now a lot, and I saw this morning Jigar Shah is the head of the Loan Program Office at the DOE. He's promoting a new program that the DOE has launched to subsidize electric school bus fleets, targeting low and middle income communities. That's a good thing. Those are the communities that are most highly impacted by diesel pollution. But here's a story from Canary Media. EV charging microgrids are worth more than the sum of their parts. And what that's a reference to is that, sure, you install a big bank of chargers, and then you electrify your fleet of trucks or buses, and then you can leverage those mobile batteries as a resiliency asset in addition. So those fleets become mobile power plants, and you can use them for the facility where they charge or some other facility, right, to keep it running in the case of an outage. And that is a wonderful thing. Everybody wants a big ass battery on wheels, and there are companies now that are specializing in installing and then being the long-term owner of the asset. There's multiple business models, but that seems to be kind of the tip of the spear, because it is such a big investment on the front end for school districts, for example, right, who are nonprofits who aren't flush with extra resources. But if somebody else will own the asset and then they're just paying for the transportation as a service, bada bing, bada boom, it actually works, and the economics can work for both parties. And Jeff St. John here calls out a company called Scale Microgrid Solutions, where they're combining solar batteries, backup generators, and EV chargers. And that truly is the holy grail of a resilient infrastructure.
Scale's a cool company. I've interacted with them in a business manner. They're very good at putting together very smart proposals. As well, I chat with one or two of them via Twitter as well. You should get them on the show. They're good folks. I am a big proponent of batteries via vehicles. Just this morning, Bloomberg put out an article. Bloomberg New Energy Finance put out an article saying that through 2030, stationary energy storage is still going to be, quote unquote, picking up the scraps from transportation energy storage. 70, 80, 90% of batteries going to transportation storage. This aligns with another report that I saw way back when from maybe Lazard, and they said 90% of batteries would be in cars. So if we're going to be making, like our friend Simon Moore says, anywhere near 6 terawatt hours of battery storage per year, I did some rough math recently. 6 terawatt hours if it gets used once a day, is it's like one. It's gaining on enough to store large chunks of the world's electricity daily needs. And if we start using a real volume of our vehicle energy storage for the grid, we're gonna actually have massive amounts of energy storage available. I think there's a really big opportunity for people who figure out the software and the tools, and for states who make the regulatory structure able to value these assets. Because I think there's going to be plenty of people who, I just saw an article where Tesla's research arm thinks they could make a near 100-year battery if you keep it at the right temperature, nickel phosphate. And it's, these discoveries are going to come. Batteries are going to be like 5 million mile batteries. And people are going to be like, I don't care, beat the heck out of it. It's a brick, it'll last. We've spoken about buses as batteries offering services already on this show. And that's being tested in multiple places across the U.S. because they have multiple hundred kWh batteries, real batteries. And you get like 500,000 buses across the United States, or 5 million, some big number.
And the phenomenon that I really appreciate about this story here, and Jeff St. John highlights a company called QCD, or Quality Custom Distribution. They're electrifying their fleet. They're in the logistics business. They have refrigerated warehouses and trucks moving stuff around. And and by the way, they're buying Volvo electric trucks. I've been hearing a lot about Volvo electric trucks. These are long haul electric trucks. But when you think about that, right, installing a fleet of 30 large electric trucks, you immediately go, well, that's going to mean an upgrade to the facility, right? The amount of juice coming to the facility. And the way they're tackling that is by installing rooftop solar and a large battery, in this case a 3 megawatt hour battery. And that way, if they're charging during the day, right, they're just using solar energy. It's just from roof to truck, and then storing extra energy in the battery, and then using the battery. And so you're not pulling a lot more juice from the grid, and that way you don't have to have this exorbitant grid upgrade, which I'm sure it would be without the solar and storage. So that is the recipe per se, right, for this electrification of fleets. Do solar and storage when you do this EV charging upgrade.
It's happening in big places, and what's cool is that there's one truck charging station that's using used EV batteries as its battery source. So a cool circular technology. I think they were using Nissan Leaf batteries stacked up in shipping containers as their battery backup to charge big giant electric trucks.
Makes sense, and yeah, I agree. Great circular economy there. You want to move on to the Furvo Geothermal story?
Furvo, I like Furvo.
Furvo, they have a cool name anyway.
And Tim Latimer, Tim is their boss. I hang out with him on Twitter as well. I watch them talking about stuff. I've always liked geothermal. I wish there was more of it. It just seems like an amazing base load source of heat and potential electricity. And I hope we keep working on it, especially if we can get lithium from these, if we could balance or mutually benefit from lithium and geothermal mining and turn it into something. Because both of those seem like they're complementary and we can gain from them a lot. So that's why I've been watching geothermal. It's great baseload, I think, and then geothermal, or then pumping this lithium, coupling it with geothermal. There might be something there, and I am excited to watch that.
I can't get the screen share to work.
Well, we can just tell everybody what's going on with it.
Yeah.
So
Furvo is based in Oakland, California.
Yes, sir.
And so they're taking geothermal energy and doing what with it?
Turning it into electricity, transporting it from Nevada to California, and selling it specifically to the East Bay Community Energy Group, which is kind of community solar for California. But it's stable 40 megawatt 24/7 electricity. So it's just a single power plant. They sign their PPA and it just runs. And so they're transporting it from Nevada, big giant open land, sending it to Cali.
So that transfer per se is happening in the form of electricity, though, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Cool. 24/7 carbon-free energy through next generation geothermal technology. Yeah. You don't hear a lot about geothermal at small scale, but maybe geothermal at large scale is gonna have a resurgence. I mean, rooftop PV has really been hard on alternative sources per se, including geothermal or DG geothermal. Wow. There's a long comment there from Benjamin Valley. You see that?
On this press release, I'll check it out. Let's see what
No,
Benjamin has to say.
on the feed, on the live feed.
Oh. Let us find that. What does Benjamin have to say? Going back to LinkedIn. Let's click over
Says
here.
Argonne Labs has a brilliant tool for evaluating storage. I just heard about it at the International Battery Seminar last month. He asks, what are the most important factors you're seeing for selecting a good location for battery storage?
I've actually read about this recently. Some of this topic. First off, for me, picking battery locations, it's the customer who's got the building, because I'm still kind of a small fry in terms of us actually doing batteries. But right now, battery co-location is kind of distorted because of the tax credits that apply to solar if you couple them with batteries. And so right now, a certain inefficiency in battery placement is being pushed for economic reasons, because they're coupling solar and battery to get the tax credit applied to the batteries, because energy storage batteries doesn't get a standalone. I think battery aren't limited yet in their locations yet. I think it's still volume issues, and the beauty of batteries is that you can put them anywhere. And I love the concept of replacing transmission upgrades with batteries. So if you have these two cities, one city has a solar farm that generates all day long, the other city's way to the west of it, and it's only got a power line behind it, but that power line is limited and all the energy can't go. Well, with some timing, you can smartly store some electricity in the batteries over here and then move them later when the power line is less congested. And I love that concept. It involves, of course, some inefficiency, and the battery has to be cost effective. But I think the location of energy storage, it can be anywhere. There's a building that was built, actually multiple. I've seen it now multiple times, but I first saw it built by Fluence, I think, and they built a 100 megawatt hour battery building. And it was like, wow, like the building makes good sense. It's no longer just shipping containers, and you can put a building anywhere. And now you got a battery thing, and it's put a building in the warehouse district, right where all the demand is. Put a building,
Right.
Battery locations is awesome. So I think battery locational value is going to be one of its greatest strengths. And people talk about transmission, winning a nationwide HVDC power line network. I hope it happens. It'd be awesome, but I'm not holding my breath. And having batteries distributed across the nation might be the second best solution. And we're going to manufacture the heck out of them. So I like the locational.
So when he says location, though, do you think he means like in what regions? Because that is the thing about batteries, is every region has their own value stack. Every ISO has a different value stack.
Mm-hmm.
Here in Illinois now we have a new incentive for stationary storage, $250 per kWh for residential and commercial batteries. That's a very generous incentive. In Massachusetts, you have an incentive, which I'm less familiar with, but if you do a solar project of 500 kW, for example, or more, you have to pair it with the battery, right? And that's just great thinking on Massachusetts' part, because the battery is a shock absorber, right? If you're going to put a generator like a solar array on the grid, then you're just lightening the load on the grid by pairing it with a battery, which can absorb extra energy or provide extra energy and do demand response instantaneously or when the sun is down, right? And it's just, batteries are just awesome technologies that we're going to just have tons and tons and tons of. And there's nothing new about them per se. It's just lithium ion is rocking the world now and getting more affordable and becoming widespread. In 10 years, everybody's going to have a battery in their garage and in their car, right? It's a both and.
So, I'd like to add an item to Benjamin's question, and it's based on a recent conversation I had with a potential customer. Somebody in Texas called us. He's a real estate developer, and he was solicited by a battery development company that wanted to lease about 5 acres of land. And the opposite corner has a bunch of buildings. This particular corner, where they wanted to take 5 of his 50-ish acres, had no buildings yet. And he was trying to figure out what to do. First off, what fee to accept for leasing the land. And second, if it's a good idea for him to lease his land to a battery. And as we were discussing it, one piece of it, first off, the fact that you talked about the ISO thing. The locational value of a battery is absolutely dictated by the incentives, the local power company, the local ISO, and all the different mix of rules that come together. And so that's something where local experts really have to know things. Like in California, batteries last 4 hours. In Texas, they last 1.5 to 2 hours, and it's based on the market design there. So that's, I'm still youth in that type of topic, but I gave this customer a neat recommendation, and I like it too, and I'm going to repeat it. And we're, in my data company, my PV Intel data company I'm part of, we're going to develop this idea out further. And it's the idea of having batteries on your piece of land as a land developer, and then selling to your other customers that are using that land, say a strip mall, that their neighbor is a battery. And that battery can somehow, maybe, offer them resilience. And what I would like to see, if I were a big landowner and somebody wanted to put a battery, I think I would negotiate that during a power outage where the electricity can't go anywhere, that this battery is obligated to sell some percentage of it to the local businesses. You want to lease my land from me? You want to put a battery? Good. Offer resilience to my other customers. That will allow a higher level usage of an asset, and it'll allow the land developer to charge more to its locals. It'll allow the battery person maybe to get a little more money out of the battery. Maybe it'll cost a little more money in interconnection, but you want the deal, you got to do it. And it brings resilience to local business. So I just thought that was a neat idea. I don't know if technically and financially how well it would work out as the market starts moving, but if somebody drops a 10, 20 megawatt hour battery and there's 3, 4, 5 small businesses, there's value there. There's resilience value, and businesses are willing to pay for resilience. So I just like the concept, and I think battery siting is going to be urban. It's going to be much more differently strategic than solar. Solar, we want to pump it into an open, empty grid. We want to be close to load. Battery, we want to sit next to the load. Like I want to sit next to a substation, and I want to isolate a circuit with my giant battery, and I want to offer my electricity to the grid in whatever arrangement I have. But if the system goes down, I want to be able to sell services to everybody on this substation, on this circuit, and make a little extra money. People pay more for houses that are on electricity circuits coupled with highly backed up infrastructure like hospitals. if you're on the same circuit as a hospital, that circuit's not going down. The grid goes down, that circuit's staying up because that hospital has like 10 megawatts of generators ready to snap on. Everybody on that circuit benefits from it. Batteries of this nature should offer that same circuit benefit that comes from the resilience of being a neighbor of a hospital. So that's my answer, Benjamin, is if you want to site some land for batteries, be next degree strategic, because it just seems to make sense there with resilience, especially in Texas with their funky grid things going on.
Yeah, I'm curious about this report now. I'll dig it up and put a link in the show notes on this MIT report. So you want to talk about Meyer Burger? They are building a gigafactory in Europe.
Of course I want to talk about Meyer Burger.
Screen sharing is not working. I don't think I'm going to do an experiment here, but I expect that to be a weird failure.
I'll say this.
Can you see the LinkedIn feed and see if that's working?
It looks great.
Okay.
You need to click on your messages and notifications more, Tim. Come on.
I gotta stay on the screen, anyway.
So that's a factory that is not being built, but that is complete. And I thought it was going to be a 1.4 gigawatt factory because it was initially 400 megawatts, and I thought I read they were adding a gigawatt of capacity, but it looks like they're slowly building it, and they've broken the 1 gigawatt mark. Everything's deployed. They're now commissioning the gear, and they're going to start pumping out some volume, and that's pretty sweet because they're sold out forever. And I'm just happy. I always like showing off Meyer Burger. They're my favorite, cutest solar panel company. I went by their booth. It was packed. I didn't get to talk to anybody cool because they were just all so busy talking with real customers, but it was just cool.
Right. Have you heard anything about their factory they're propping up here in the U.S.?
I heard that the facility to build the machines to fill out that factory was usurped by this facility taking all those technicians to build these machines, and that they're actually building or have built a building right next to the machine manufacturing factory to build the Arizona ones. And it's like, so I think we did get pushed back a tiny bit. I don't know explicitly because I wasn't paying attention to dates, but I am pretty certain that the European factory machine demands have stepped in front of the Arizona, to the best of my knowledge. And they still said, hey, we're going forward with it. We're still doing everything. But I bet it's a little bit slower because of just the massive volume of demand that's in Europe right now.
Yep. Cool. Well, our friend Chris Bartle from Seal at Terre has posted some nice photos of wildlife on solar panels, and I'm going to put this on screen.
I'm interested in us researching solar plus or floating solar and how we can maybe do it better. Right now, we're getting better at solar, agrivoltaics. We're getting better at pollinator. We're getting better at grazing. It would be sweet if we figured out a magical mix with floating solar. Maybe we space it out a tiny bit more and we add things that birds love. It's probably not the greatest idea because birds are going to poop all over everything, but I don't know. But I just
well, they're certainly going to lay eggs on the walkway.
Yeah.
But I can't blame them, right? Like, what a perfect spot. If you're a duck, it makes sense. So, yeah, I saw in the news that they have Seal at Terre has a new record large project being built in New Jersey.
Yep.
New Jersey seems to be a hotbed for floating solar.
They pushed it in their legislation. They pushed it in for agrivoltaics are in the legislation as well. So I'm hoping to see some projects start popping up there.
I mean, it makes sense, right? Because Jersey is so land constrained, small state. New Jersey is the size of Israel. Um, Smaller state, big population, so land is a premium. And there is some very nice, wildlands and garden lands or farmland in New Jersey. It's not just an urban jungle.
Well, it's called
went
the
to
Garden
I went to
State.
high school in New Jersey, John. I don't know if you knew that.
Yeah. Well, it's called the Garden State for a reason.
It's true.
Yeah.
And
Now,
and you know, and thanks to friends like Jim Spano, New Jersey was a early adopter. Jim got into solar in '04, and I just published an interview on Tuesday with him and Mark Suttles, the CEO of Sol REIT. So they are shaking up the world of solar finance, bringing more tools to EPCs and developers. But I love this Seal at Terre
I want to
company.
point out one thing before we leave this
Yeah,
article. It's the fox that has integrated its hunting territory. It's the fox that has made the floating system part of its hunting territory.
yeah. Yeah, I was wondering
I
if
just
that was a
thought that was
fox.
cool.
It looks like a frozen solar array at the moment. I wonder where this is. Do you know?
Spartan M, 2 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm looking at the labels across the bottom. 12/4/2018. No idea.
Yeah.
No idea. So, but pretty neat. I like floating. You've
Yeah,
been paying
floating is
attention to your
great.
electricity bill? Oh.
My power bill is doing okay until December, and then it's going to go up. It's going to double. And this is a phenomenon that many customers are now wrestling with, and it's great for us in the solar industry because it makes solar pencil faster, but it's hard on consumers.
I'm mean. I'm really mean, Tim. I'm happy that the price of natural gas is going up over $9. There's one piece about it that hurts me though, because there's a lot of poor people who are at the edge of finances, and seeing their electricity rates go up 15-20% isn't good. However, this might be a tough love thing that we need to
Right.
move us faster. I don't know how to say it any other way. When the price of gasoline and fossil gas goes up, we build more clean energy infrastructure. And if I was just in the clean energy world just to make money, that would have been dumb of me, because I made more money as a banker way back when, and bankers always seem to make money, and I'm good at spreadsheets. But this is part of a mission, and I want the species to do well. I do care about the American consumer and their electricity bill, but I care more about their grandkids than their Christmas gifts. And I know it sounds bad, but this is good. And it's
Yeah,
gonna
so
hurt.
put it in context, though. If natural gas is $9.38 per MMBTU right now, what was it a year ago?
2.5, 3,
Yeah,
and it had been down since 2008ish. I was wrong for about a decade, saying, "Hey, price of gas is going up. Hey, price of gas is going up. Can't stay down. Can't stay down. Hey, price of gas is going up." Didn't go up.
yeah,
Never went up.
yeah. I have an upcoming interview that'll drop in a couple weeks with a company called Nania Energy. Michael DeCalui. We're talking all about the price of energy and why it is flowing right now. Energy is a commodity, and those prices ebb and flow. But we are hearkening back to '08 when energy prices were high, and that's the territory that we're in. And you get used to it. We've had 10 years. We've had 14 years of cheap energy and falling prices, and now it's going the other direction, and it's going fast. So it's a wake-up call. And we do need to pay more for energy, right? That's one of the reasons why, for example, the carbon footprint of Northern Europe on a per capita basis is almost half of what it is here in the U.S. And that boils down to the fact that we have very cheap fossil fuels readily available. And that's why we have the car culture that we have. We have not invested in rail. To the contrary, we shut all of our great regional rail down in the 50s, unfortunately, and now we're stuck with very expensive gasoline and natural gas, and electricity is going up too. So, but that's good for my business. You know, I'm in the solar PPA business, John. I'm looking for large commercial, industrial, and institutional facilities that could install, for example, a megawatt or more of solar, and we'll offer you a PPA at sometimes less than 3 cents a kWh, right? So if you're paying 6 to 10 cents, you can more than half your cost of energy by going solar, and there's no out of pocket because we want to install and own and operate the asset. So think about that, institutional and C&I facility owners. Well, we should probably wrap up our show here, John. Is there anything else news-wise or commercial solar guy-wise that you want to talk about?
Tons of stuff I always want to talk about. I want to make sure you highlight that 3 cents per kilowatt hour in this marketplace where the price of gas is going to hit $10, and Europe has seen the price of electricity double. And electricity pricing is going to keep going up right now. And I think the price of energy is going to outpace the price increases of our industry's hardware. And everything I've seen suggests that so far. And so right now, if you're a commercial entity, make your judgment calls about whether or not you want to enjoy the roller coaster ride of upward electricity pricing. It's a really interesting topic. When I was in Europe for a couple weeks ago at Intersolar in Munich, the residential solar guys were, halfway saying, thank you, Mr. Putin, for being such a scumbag. You're the best salesperson that the energy industry has ever had. And now they're saying they're not doing sales proposals. They're filling out order forms and making sure they design things competently because the demand is through the roof. And, this is why we're in this industry, because of the craziness of what global energy markets are. And, so anyway, commercial solar guy, we do solar power sometimes. I'm even doing a project with Tim, maybe. I don't know. We're working on it. I got PTO for a 250 kW project. It's wonderful, Tim. And pretty soon we might be looking for a project manager that's focused in Mass and Rhode Island to keep up with stuff. We just got business, and I'm spread around, so we got to get somebody to zoom in and focus on our deals one by one every day. So lots of stuff going on. CommercialSolarGuy.com.
Very good, very good. Well, you can check out all of our content here at the Clean Power Hour at cleanpower.group/podcast. Click on that YouTube link, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and of course, subscribe on your favorite audio player on Apple, Spotify, Google. Give us a rating and review, and reach out to us. You can find us both on Twitter or on LinkedIn. And I'm TG Montague on Twitter. John is Solar in Mass. And you're going to have to change your handle, I'm afraid, John, because you're no longer just Solar in Mass. You're Solar in New York.
Wait. Solar in massive volumes. How's that? Come on.
It's true.
Yeah.
You're starting to work in Illinois, I'm pleased to say, and I look forward to working with you guys here in the great Prairie State. The Midwest is a greenfield, and we have tons of great real estate assets and tons of sunshine. So we're just scratching the surface. It's so early days here in the Midwest. With that, I will say thank you John Weaver, and thank you for listening. We really appreciate everybody who checks out our show, and for Robert and Benjamin for coming on the live with us today, and for that link that Benjamin gave us to the Argon Labs tool. We'll put that in the show notes. So with that, have a great week, John, and we'll see you next week.
Yep.
Let's grow solar and storage. I'm Tim Montague. Take care.